why did Cappellini decide to join the original?
Well, originally it was the decision of one of my former colleagues, Federico Materazzi, and I believe at the time he really saw that it was a good initiative. Maybe it was from a sales perspective because the Patronifrau group has Casina, and as you probably know, the Le Corbusier collection has been knocked off, I don't know, for years now. And it's something that is kind of easy to knock off in the sense that you can make the cushion's very simple, tubular steel isn't the most complicated thing to produce now, but the details are the complicated thing to produce, or to replicate, I should say. So I think that was part of it. Cappellini has also had some issues. We have some products by Nendo, for instance, the ribbon stool, our best selling product for contract is the tulip chair, which is one of our iconic pieces, and that has been knocked off several times. So I think we just saw it as a good initiative to be a part of, and myself, right now, being involved personally, I continued our engagement because I firmly believe that the organization is really creating awareness, and that it's a wonderful initiative.
And how would one be able to tell if what they're looking at is a knockoff or if it's an original?
It boils down to the details, for sure, the details. Some are just more blatant than others, but there's good copies out there. And I remember a few years ago, we actually ordered one of the best LC4 copies so that our own people could see the difference and try to catch the difference because it was so good. Now with a Casina piece, it's easy at first because there's an engraving with a serial number. But at the end of the day, it's really details. For instance, the first time I saw the tulip chair knocked off, I was kind of shocked. It just wasn't as elegant. It wasn't as well made. You could tell it was going to fall apart in 5 years, whereas our product is not. One thing that I always say about Cappellini, okay, we never hail ourselves about being like a green company, but you will not find it on the street. You'll never find a Cappellini chair or a product on the street to pick up, during garbage day. So it's all about the integrity of creating a product that can really last a very long time.
Not somewhat related. I live in the Midwest now, and there are so many antique dealers who just don't want to figure out how to sell outside of the Midwest. So there's one antique dealer in my town who I'm friends with, and he has all originals that come in, like tulip chairs, and he makes sure, like he knows the details, he knows, and he won't sell anything that he knows is a knockoff, or he'll say like knockoff from this date by this person, and first thing, he's super jealous that I get to come talk to everybody. But it's also so interesting about, those originals are still so in demand. And so often he meets people who aren't designers, who don't know anything about design. But they see it and they still are so drawn to it. It doesn't matter that the design, if a design came out 50, 60 years ago, it's still working so well. And that kind of good design is more than just how long it'll last, materiality-wise, but the understanding of that piece and the way that that piece fits into society is just so long-lasting. And I guess what would you say to new specifiers, interior designers who are coming in from university and they're saying they know the names, they know the brands, but they don't have the ability to purchase full out? What would be your suggestions to them on how to kind of get that everlasting design?
Sure. Well, the first thing I have to say, and this is from the consultant guy in me when it comes to an end client coming into our showroom, it's okay to be aspirational with how you want to live. You don't have to buy everything all in one shot. In fact, I usually try to tell people not to, because your taste develops. Now, culturally in the States, we don't have the same awareness of design as, say, people in Europe, like Italy, Denmark, what have you. Brazilians even in Sao Paulo are more knowledgeable about design than your average person here. So there's a cultural thing there, but I think that don't be afraid to kind of shop and try to understand where your price points are, like what you can really afford, you know? But at the same time, it's really about perceived value, because in a drop of, you know, a dime, somebody would say, okay, $40,000 for a car that's going to last 5 years, no big deal. But a $20,000 sectional in premium leather or premium fabric is shocking to people. I think that you have to really understand that the value is so great to be able to live comfortably the way you want to, in a style that works for you. And it's okay to wait a little while. If you can't afford it now, you know, it's okay to aspire and start collecting little by little instead of everything all at once. So again, I think it boils down to cultural differences and perceived value at the end of the day.
Okay, great. How have knockoffs affected your brand?
Well, you know, it affects our brand if we see a tulip chair that's a knockoff at a major trade show. It affects our brand because someone may know what it is or have seen it before, and all of a sudden it looks kind of dilapidated in comparison to ours. And you know, it's a kind of belittling in a way, because you know what's gone into that. You know that there's people in Italy that are making these products that, you know, some of our products are, you know, two brothers and a father that specialize in a few products for major brands because they are just excellent craftsmen. It's not an assembly line thing. So I'll go back to them and I'll see, you know, in my head, like, wow, you know, these guys are working so hard for this, and then somebody's just going to come with no integrity and just try to make a version that's, you know, it's just never going to stand up to what we have, you know, and you have to also think that in Italy, you know, mid-century, furniture was such a huge thing for their industry, you know, to bring them back post-war, right? And they just have specialized in production and in craft for so long. So it's never gonna, it's really never gonna be the same. So, you know, it affects me from a personal standpoint, but from a business standpoint, you know, it's also very difficult because, you know, the bottom line is we usually for projects will go through a purchasing agent or a dealer, and sometimes they try to reselect and they don't have the integrity. So it's really important for them to not reselect things that are going to make the architect look bad, to the developer look bad, because you walk in, you see something that looks like something you know, and then 6 months later they have to change it out. When they try to come back to us, sometimes it's like, actually, no, you never placed the order with us.
Yeah.
this isn't, we're not responsible for this, you know? So I think that, you know, it's affected us negatively for both the perception, but also, you know, we're relatively small companies, so every dollar counts pretty much.
Okay. And is there anything that I haven't touched upon that you think is important for people to know about original design?
I'm sure there's a lot of things to know about original design. No, I think that what's really important is to try to educate yourself. If you're interested in design, you know, I would really suggest try to start in the early 20th century and go from there, you know, because technology, as it changes, design changes. And I think it's really important to understand these things, and then you can really refer to, you know, the companies that are probably now popularizing design, but they're also popularizing design in ways that's more inspired by, I don't want to say pure knockoffs. So when I'm on the blogs, when I'm on social media and whatnot, and I'm seeing, you know, 10,000 likes for a chair that I know is basically something that was designed in the 50s, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, you know? So I think that it's really fun to learn about the designers, and a great thing is to study maybe the Domus books. That's very Italian-centric, but it's a great starting point in any sense. But yeah, I think that culturally we can get there. It's just a matter of more awareness, and somehow we've got to make it cooler for people to be interested, you know? Like design's taken strides the last 20 years, but we've got a long way to go in the States, I think.
Yeah, I always think about, my undergrad was in industrial design and furniture design, and I loved the history class. I ended up getting my master's in design history and theory, but I lived with all designers, so my roommate would sign me in for my 8 a.m. class, and then I'd sign her in for the 3-hour history class, and I'm just like, but then I came to Parsons and I was teaching a history class, and it was like, oh, no, you guys pay attention.
Well, that's a really good point, because I was speaking recently to a friend of mine about how I've actually been to Parsons a few times for some critiques, and sometimes we have students over to the Cappellini showroom here in Soho, and I'm kind of shocked sometimes at the lack of awareness of the Cappellini brand in general, which I know that the designers in the industry that are my friends, they love Cappellini. You know, Cappellini was always this huge inspiration to them. So I think recently design history in terms of furniture and whatnot I'm not for sure, but I don't know if in your major schools, if it's as talked about as just, in general product design. So I think that history is crucial to our development, is learning the history as the young designers are going through college and grad school and blah blah blah. They really should be super educated on, I would say easily from the 20s on. I mean, they should be able to spot chairs from different brands and say that's so and so, that's so and so, and that's so and so. And that is the way that we're actually going to be able to progress, if you ask me, and not kind of in a way regurgitate design.